Welcome to Postscript. I'm Beth Cappello.
And I'm Christina Zeiders. And we have a special guest here today for you.
Yes, we are welcoming back Helen Widdowson. Now, Helen, you were with us in season 1, and we are so happy to have you here today.
Well, thank you for having me again.
Welcome.
So previously, when you were on the podcast in season 1, we touched on your event planning role at WITF located in central Pennsylvania. You have an event coming up for All Creatures Great and Small season 3, you said. So can you tell us more about this event?
Sure. So this year's event is the screening, but it's complemented by an authentic Yorkshire pub dinner, which is going to have live music, a cocktail hour, and some fun pub trivia.
Awesome. That sounds like so much fun.
I'm excited about it being a little more laid back than last year's. Last year's was a little more proper.
Yes, last year we had a proper Yorkshire dinner. This year we are definitely going to kick back a little bit more. The aesthetics are a little bit different, although we're in the same location as last year, which is the beautiful Stiegel Stable, which is part of the Elizabeth Furness Group, and that's in Lidditz. And you drive up, and you can't really see the venue when you drive up into the parking lot, but once you do, it really does look like Yorkshire. Like, that's what struck me about it in the first place for last year's event. So we decided to try to go with them again this year, and I'm happy to say that worked out. So that's half the battle, is having the venue give the look that I want for all the aesthetics of the event, and that one, Stiegel Stable, certainly does that. So when people enter, I'm not going to give too much away because that spoils like the, oh my gosh, look, So, but I'll give a little bit away. Like, you're going to walk into the Drover's Pub, for lack of a better description. And when you walk in, there won't be tablecloths to the floor. It'll be a much more pub-like area that you'll enter, but it will also be comfortable and formal as well, although not pinky raising formal. We will have tea, and we can raise our pinkies at the end when we have a wonderful dessert, but it will look very similar to the scenes that you see in the Drover's Pub in the series.
So Tristan would feel comfortable at this one.
Absolutely.
Tristan loves the Drover's Pub.
And we're hoping that people might sing along with the live music we have planned. So that's also very exciting.
Oh,
cool.
That's awesome.
So we watched this episode together before we started recording, and you mentioned that you knew a lot about Mrs. Hall's jello cake that she made for Tristan's birthday. Can you tell me more about that?
So it's amazing to me in this series how much jello and gelatined things pop up in scenes, and that's why I sort of honed in on this time. So remember during the Tricky Woo episode when we were discussing cat foot jelly?
We can't not know Tricky Woo.
Yeah.
Of course we remember Tricky Woo.
And his snacks.
So it turns out that any kind of jellied dinnerware mold was only ever part of the elite that would have a dinner. So it wasn't in a normal household. So, and that's because, as we discussed before about these jellies, they were from rendering collagen from animal bones and then clarifying them, which was completely time-consuming. So gelatin indicated that you had a staff large enough to spare time to actually do this. When we fast forward to the 1930s, there were when Jello, the actual Jello brand, became popular, people were starting to utilize it in their cooking because it saved so much time and it created this wobbly, fun dessert. So Mrs. Hall's Jello creation, which was referenced twice in this episode with Tristan saying, but I've made blancmange. So blancmange is a Jello that's made with milk, kind of has a custardy kind of feeling. But it's definitely a domestic achievement. So, if you didn't know this, you could see the disappointment on her face that he was not going to partake of this because he was consuming liquids at that point. So, but the amazing thing about this Jello is that you could make it for 10 cents a box and look and feel extravagant.
Okay.
And so perhaps maybe some of us that are older remember family gatherings where some aunt or somebody came in with a jello mold creation. Like I never ate them because I was never excited about jello creations, but
a friend of mine posts aspics all the time to her Facebook feed, like from the 1950s, and I'm always horrified by most of them.
Yeah. I'm not a fan, but they were certainly big, and jello's still around because, as you know, you in the grocery store, you still see it on
There's
the
like
shelf.
a whole wall of jello at the grocery store. I cannot eat jello. I'm a texture person.
It's a texture
that
thing.
texture just, no thanks.
Like sweet jello I'm used to because I grew up eating it, but like the idea of a savory food in jello just weirds me out so much.
It does.
And
it does.
I mean, I would try it. If it was put in front of me, I would try it, but I'd feel like I wouldn't like it.
Yeah, and I've never really understood jello shots, so because that's from a generation I'm not a part of.
I have a story of jello shots, and my friend was like, "Here, take a jello shot." This is so weird. We were in a parking lot going to an event, and we popped open the trunk of her minivan, and she pulled out a sheet of jello shots. I don't know. It was really weird. She was like going to a party after, I guess. She goes, "Do a jello shot with me," and I tried. It was in there, and
texture.
I tried just throwing it to the back of your throat because then
swallowing
the
it
texture
whole?
and swallowing it whole. Apparently, that's the way you're supposed to do it or something.
Oh.
So I just tried, and then I was like, and just spit it right out in the grass. It was yeah.
I definitely chew my jello shots.
You chew them?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I can't. Like a big hunk of jelly stuff going down my throat sounds really unpleasant. So, I mean, they are tasty if you're not adverse to the feel of jello.
Yeah, I guess.
Well,
I'm not a fan of the texture, though.
I admit I'm much more like Tristan. I take my shots in liquid
form.
I prefer that too now. So, Helen, after watching this episode, and of course you are a lover of all creatures great and small, you do amazing jobs on events and everything. What is something that you know about all creatures great and small that you'd like to let our listeners know?
So one of the things that I'm always attracted to in any series that's on Masterpiece is the production design and the aesthetics of how they recreate a time period or an event within the series or just daily life. And one of the things I'm sure some of the viewers have noticed is the appearance of the color red. Like in so many scenes, there's this little pop of red. And if you're wondering why that is, I did a little digging and I found out.
And it's not as simple as it's the color of Masterpiece.
No, it actually has nothing to do with that.
Okay.
I have to
awesome.
say. It's actually all about the production designer for All Creatures Great and Small. Her name is Jacqueline Smith. And most of the scenes that you see in the series right now are kind of earthy tones because you're in the Yorkshire Dales. So there's green, there's stone, there's mud, there's dirt, there's farms. But the production designer, who admittedly has a love of baking and warmth, decided she needed to offset it with something. So there's a particular Yorkshire artist painter, and his name is Simon Palmer. And all of his paintings have a flash of red in them.
Oh.
So she was inspired by that. And I don't know if you remember me talking the last time I was on that some of my events start with one key inspiring element. And for her, it was the pops of red in his paintings. And she was inspired by that. So she decided, well, let me bring in these warm, buttery colors into the house at Skeldale and into other scenes within the series. And so she uses her own red hues wherever she sees fit. And I mean, you saw in this series, there was even a scarf that somebody laid down during the calf delivery that was maroon. It was even in the barn, there was a slash of red. So, so hopefully by me telling you this, you'll now pay attention and go, there's red again, there's red again. And that's what I know this time.
Yeah, we had discussed, not on the podcast, but during our discussion beforehand that Helen wears a lot of maroon. So that's one way that they're incorporating it too through the clothing.
That's exactly it. And the way the designer described it, it's like her little cherry on top. And I feel
Nice.
the same way about my events. I do something within an event. And I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing in this pub event to put that little cherry on top, to just pull it all together and make people feel warm and cozy and comfortable.
Well, now Beth and I have to figure out what the cherry is.
I know.
I'm not going to tell you.
Okay.
You know. But when
It'll
you're watching, don't you feel like when you see the scenes in Skeldo House that you want to sit there on the couch and have a cup of tea?
Oh, yeah. It's real warm and cozy and comfortable looking.
Yeah, 100% I want to be there.
So she did her job then, because it makes you feel like you want to crawl into that scene and be with the people.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, she's great. All right. Well, thank you, Helen, for being on our podcast again and talking to us about All Creatures Great and Small, your event planning, and giving us a little bit of tidbit on the red in Masterpiece. And now Christina and I are going to have to keep like tallies or something. We have to do something.
Yeah, well, Tristan would turn it into a drinking game. So let's not do that, because then this podcast will just fall apart.
It'll get a little sloppy.
But remember at the end of this episode, he did say we should have went to the bar in the beginning.
Yeah,
I know. Yep, very
Avoided
true.
the whole thing.
Exactly.
No, thank you for having me.
Of course,
you.
of course. All right, everybody, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll talk to you about the episode.
Support for All Creatures Great and Small on Masterpiece is made possible locally by WITF members and by Pleasant View Communities, UPMC, Murray, and Argiers Murati Neurosurgical Associates of Lancaster.
Welcome back. We're talking about Season 2, Episode 4 of All Creatures Great and Small. Its title is actually called Many Happy Returns.
Yes, and it's Tristan's birthday, and he has quite the emotional roller coaster ride this episode.
That is very true. And in true Tristan fashion, he seems to bounce back quickly, or he's just gotten really good at pushing his Siegfried-induced trauma down quickly after it happens.
He must be really good at that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this poor guy. So before we get into the episode, we want to remind you that we'd like to hear from you.
Yes, tell us why you like watching All Creatures Great and Small. Is it because of the animals, the set design? Is there something you took your own closer look at after watching an episode? Send us your thoughts at postscript@witf.org. That's postscript@witf.org.
And if you'd like to be a guest on Postscript, when we cover Season 3, send us a short video or voice note telling us why you love All Creatures Great and Small.
So on that note, should we get started?
Yes, let's get into it. Yay!
Yeah.
So overall, my quick little summary is that it is Tristan's birthday. So, of course, there's a cause for celebration.
Of course.
Of course. And Helen and James finally talk about the Glasgow job.
Yes, this has been like looming over them for a few episodes now.
It has been.
Yeah.
That's very true. Very true. So, of course, Tristan's like the youngest. I feel
He's the
him.
baby.
Here's my kinship with him. He's the youngest. He's a baby. Birthday is a huge deal. So we start with Tristan opening a present. And he's surrounded by his family, James,
Yeah.
Mrs. Hall, and Siegfried, right?
I love that James is part of the family and Mrs. Hall. It makes sense to us.
It does make sense.
It's
It
the big
does.
happy family.
They are. They're family. So he opens a gift, and it's this beautiful bag
with
for
his name.
with his name, T.S. Farnan,
Right.
which we find out that his middle name is Sebastian.
Oh, is that?
Yes.
Is that so?
He says it later on in the episode.
Okay. I
But it's
missed that.
Tristan Sebastian Farnan.
Oh, I love it.
I know. It was really cute. I like that. It sounds very
and
nice.
it has his credentials behind it. So
Yes.
that, what is it? MRCVS.
Yes. Do you know what that stands for?
I looked it up.
Ooh.
Member of the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Fancy.
Yeah, he's fancy now.
Yeah. So when I saw that bag, I know you're going to say, oh my gosh, Beth, why? But I thought, like, when is he going to find out that he failed his
Right.
exams? That's just like,
Right. Like, it's a deep, dark secret.
it
And
is.
Siegfried's been keeping it really long now.
Yep.
Very, like, what?
Months.
4 months. 4 months?
I mean,
almost
well,
5 months?
It was April, a
Yeah.
couple episodes, like in the beginning.
Right.
It was
so it's
Easter.
4 or 5 months.
We're on like episode 4 now. So
Yeah.
it's got to be
He's good.
later than April. I don't know.
Yeah. He's been keeping it since Christmas.
Yes.
Anyway.
It's a very long time. So they talk about that. Tristan gets his own list from Siegfried.
Yes, he gets a promotion. He gets his own list.
Exactly. He's finally getting like an opportunity for independence here.
Yeah, and he's so proud.
Yes, and he's so proud of himself. And James is going to tag along in case anything goes wrong, which is I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's good that he has some supervision.
Exactly. And definitely not Siegfried, who runs after Tristan, making sure he has everything he needs. Tristan, let me help you.
Would absolutely hate that. James is a much better choice.
Yeah. Siegfried is such a control freak. And so then we have Mrs. Hull talking to James about Helen and how he really needs to kind of tell her about the job in Glasgow. And I can't believe he hasn't told her yet.
Out with it. Yes. Out with it, boy.
Yes, okay. Exactly. Like he needs to get this out. So James and Tristan go off to the estate to do these horses. They have to file down horses' teeth.
Yeah.
No idea about that.
Rasping, yeah.
Is that what it's called? I've never heard of that before. But okay. So he... Mr.
Munkham is like really unimpressed with Tristan.
Yeah.
He's like, where's Siegfried?
Super unimpressed.
Where's Farnan? I'm Farnan.
I know. He's like, I'm Farnan? He's right here. And he's just like, well, why are you here? And why is like James here? And why isn't Siegfried here? But
right.
Okay, Siegfried kind of knows, like he's a good vet. So he knows, like, we'll just keep going. That's fine. And then like this episode jumps around so much. We go to the Skeldale house and then the puppy that he worked on, like he gave surgery for something.
Some minor surgery. It was like a lipoma or a cyst of some kind,
I guess. And then like the whimpering. I can't do the whimpering.
Is so sad.
I really can't. Yeah. I'm like, please stop. Like I can't do the whimpering. But he's just like, he's fine or she's fine.
It's just the barbiturates leaving the system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then Mrs. Hall talks about going to the butcher's and that Siegfried really needs to leave Tristan alone on his birthday, on his first day out.
You said he'd do it himself. Let him prove himself.
Exactly. Yep. And he really does. And I mean, like, James is with him. He should be fine.
Yeah.
James is Sarah's backup.
He is in very good hands.
Yeah, there's no reason for Siegfried to go and check up on
other than he
them.
wants to meddle because he just can't let go of control.
Exactly. What a control freak. So then we cut to James and Tristan. James is giving Tristan a little bit of a pep talk, walking through the courtyard, going to the horse stalls. And we notice a new person.
A beautiful blonde.
She's beautiful. She really is. And Margot Seabright Saunders.
Yep, Margot. Yep. She even has a fancy name.
I love that name. If I had a girl, that was on our name list.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, Margot.
Would they have been fancy?
They would have been. Pinky up, lady. I don't know. She'd probably be playing in the mud, so it's all good. That's how we do it here.
Well, I mean, Margot is a horse rider, so she probably does get muddy, too.
Yeah, that's very true. But yeah, so we meet her for a quick second, and then we go to the horse barn where Tristan is filing a horse's teeth, right? And Margot arrives. And we meet her, and Tristan kind of talks to her and tries showing off.
Well, he's so awkward, though. He's like obviously very nervous around her because he mentions that she's out of his league, essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's trying to show off. He's like, yep, fully credentialed now. And she's like, okay.
Sounds good. Bye, weirdo.
I'm going to make sure my horse is ready in the afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like so trying to flirt with her, and it's just not working.
He's kind of in James' shoes now.
Yes.
Very awkward.
Yes. Yeah. I 100% agree with that. Yeah. And so Mr. Munkham leaves the barn, and James reassures Tristan, like, you're doing a good job after we find out that the horse named Satan.
I love it.
I feel like we're at your house because you would name your animals exactly who they are.
Baba Yaga, my dad calls Hellcat. So I was like, oh, this is the Baba Yaga of the horse world.
I feel like if I called Cookie Satan, she would like be worse towards me. I love that. We need to get that on. Oh, I need a picture of you doing that, please. So then we go back to the Skeldale house.
Yes, lots of back and forth this time.
I know.
Back at the Skeldale house.
It's like every 2 minutes, I swear. But so Siegfried is just kind of twiddling away at his desk.
He's pretending to be busy.
Yeah, but he's like, I need something to do. Yeah, I need to go check on Tristan.
He's basically a big fidget.
Yes.
He's just one big fidget right now.
Exactly. I feel you. I feel you on that. So he says he's going to go check on Tristan. Mrs. Hall says, no, you shouldn't again.
Right, reiterate. No.
And what does he do?
He leaves.
He leaves.
With a spare rasp. With that as the reason, quote unquote.
Oh, yeah, just in case he needs it. No. And then, the dog needs some company.
Yeah, the dog is lonely. That's why it's whimpering so much.
Yes, it's lonely and needs some company. And I'm like, okay. And then he says, maybe Jess will hang out with it. And I was like, where's Jess? I love
We're
Jess.
excited about Jess.
Why is she not here? And where is she?
Right.
This dog, I think you said the name was George.
Oh, the actual
Previously,
dog.
the actual dog actor is George. We must be super popular, very well trained, and on a ton of other TV shows or movies.
That's possible. I said maybe it's possible that the two dogs didn't get along as well.
Yeah, you're thinking
I think that's
TV show-ish. I'm thinking background, where is this dog? It must have other jobs.
Just on an adventure, okay? Jess is on an adventure.
No. Oh, my goodness. So we cut back to Satan's horse stall. Tristan and Satan are face to face, right?
Yeah.
So Tristan goes in calmly, then he gets a little confident, and Satan decides to freak out and kick him.
And it looks like it hurt.
Oh my gosh, it looks like it really hurt.
I felt like he broke his kneecap.
Oh, really? You felt that?
I felt it in my knee.
Oh.
Yeah.
Your poor knee.
Tristan takes it like a champ, though.
Yes, he does. He's just like, you know what? We're going to keep going. James offers to tag in. And Tristan's like, nope, I got this. Then we go to the car when he's done. And Tristan confesses that he thought he broke his kneecap.
I told you, I felt it in my knee.
I know. And could have passed out at any moment. And James is like, you could have let me take over. And then Tristan goes on and on about how Siegfried would have loved that.
Right. Like, no, you have to take care of the animal first. A good vet doesn't back off and puts the animal first. Yeah.
Exactly. Like Siegfried just wants to see Tristan fail is how Tristan feels.
Yeah.
That's how he feels.
Kind of that's the history, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so then we see as they leave, Siegfried comes in.
Right.
But it's raining.
And
all of a sudden it's raining. Because it was not raining in the horse stall.
Right.
But now, and when they were talking outside of the car, it wasn't raining.
Right.
And then when they leave, it's raining. This is like a continuity error here. It's got to be. Or like some kind of error with the filming and the timeline. So it's raining. I mean, that driveway must have been really long.
Maybe we weren't supposed to notice the rain, and that's why his top was down. Maybe we weren't supposed to notice.
I don't know. But then Siegfried rolls up in his car with his top down, and it's raining.
Yes. This is also recurring because...
And he's just like, this is happening.
That's how
it's okay.
James was driving that car, too.
Yeah.
In the last season.
It was.
Yeah.
We need to figure out, and somebody please help, like email us and let us know if you know anything about, like, if they just had to do this in the rain. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, did they just always, like, does it rain a lot in the Yorkshire Dales? We should probably look that up.
It probably does.
It probably does because rain just, the filming must go on. So anyway, we go back to the clinic. Tristan and James are there and they ask where Siegfried went. Mrs. Hall, she tries to be sparing on the details, right? She's like, oh, he went out.
She tries to cover it for him.
She tries. And then they just confess. She confesses, says he went to go catch up with Tristan. And then he comes in. Siegfried comes in. And James is like, we missed you at the estate, I guess.
Awkward.
I know. Siegfried says, like, saw Mr. Munkham and chatted with him for a minute. There were no comments. It's just like, just move quicker next time.
Right. Like, you took your time.
Yeah. Next time, move quicker. And like,
he can't praise Tristan for anything.
I know. I feel so bad for Tristan because it's like he's always looking for a pat on the back. And of course, Siegfried just never gives him one.
He wants an acknowledgement for the fact that he did a good job.
Exactly.
He did a good job.
Exactly. The dynamic between those two is like, it's quite painful to watch sometimes.
Yeah, it is actually. Like,
it is.
I feel bad for Tristan. I also feel for Siegfried. Like, I am Siegfried sometimes, so I get it. But just praise the boy.
I know. So then the phone rings and we find out that the Dobson's heifer's in labor and it's not progressing. So Siegfried sends off Tristan. Tristan's going to go and do this, but he mentions to James that he needs to go and see the Aldersons.
Right, the horse that's in
yes,
foal. Yeah,
the horse and the Andersons' foal. So he also mentions to James that they should sit down and talk about like improvements in the practice. And I'm like, why is Siegfried being nice today?
Very exciting for James.
Yeah. But like, why is Siegfried being nice? I don't know. He's given Tristan this thing. Like, is it because Tristan's birthday? I don't know. It was a little fishy. It was a little fishy.
It is out of character.
It is. So, and, so they go and...
Well, when Tristan's leaving, he gets in the Rover because Siegfried also gives him the Rover.
Yeah.
He gets in the Rover and drives off and then comes back because he has driven in the wrong direction. He goes wrong direction.
Poor Tristan.
And Mrs. Hall is like, James, why don't you go check on him after you're done at the Aldersons?
Yeah, exactly. So then Tristan goes and he actually goes through the forest.
Yeah.
And I always worry when they're filming about cars. And I'm like, what's going to happen to this car?
Yeah, that's legit.
Yep, exactly. He sees Margot on Satan.
Yes.
I can't get over that name, Satan.
He tails her.
Yes.
Just very casually, I'm driving through the forest.
Yep. Just stops and sits by the car and goes, yeah, this is a great car, isn't it? Doesn't deny that it's his.
Yeah, he doesn't confirm or deny.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And then invites her to a dinner party where she finds out that Helen is also going to be there.
Right.
That would be great to catch up with her.
That was a little foodie dangled in front of her.
It was. And so she's like, sure, okay. And then he nervously goes, you can show up at 7:30 or 8 or whenever. So he was like a little smooth and then all of a sudden just threw it right out the window. You're like, okay, Tristan.
Oh my gosh. I feel for him. He's usually very confident. He's out of his element with her.
He is. He very much is. So at the Aldersons, James is with the horse and helping out. We find out that it's Helen and Jenny's mom's horse, Candy.
Yep.
She gave birth, has a foal, but she's doing well. And then we see Helen and James kiss.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
so
cute.
sweet.
So sweet.
They're becoming a real couple now. They feel comfortable.
They are.
Yeah.
And then Helen mentions about how he could have gone soft had he stayed in Glasgow any longer.
Right, because he was saying he liked having nights off, liked getting a full night's sleep. Yeah.
And that's like the perfect segue into I was offered a job in Glasgow, and yet he does not.
He's just
say
afraid
anything.
to bring it up. He feels awkward.
I know. It's like, come on.
I don't think he really knows what he wants to do yet either.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still thinking about it. So then we see Tristan at the Dobson farm, and he's trying to deliver this calf.
Right.
Yes.
Putting on quite a show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So dramatic. His
shoulder
arm
deep again.
Yeah, shoulder deep. At least it wasn't as graphic as James did it. But he is shoulder deep in there. Oh, my gosh, the pelvis is so long. Oh, my gosh, here comes a contraction. And he's like, ow, my arm.
Yeah.
Like, Mr. Dobson feeds him tea.
He, puts it down in front of his face. Yeah.
He is milking this. So, he's so dramatic about it. So then we go back to the Skeldale house where Helen shows up with Mrs. and trying to help out with Mrs. Hall.
Yeah, she arrives early because she's punctual and helpful.
Exactly. Sounds a little bit like me. And then they talk about how Siegfried is being really nice.
And out of character.
Yep. Yeah. And I am not the only one who noticed that. They noticed it as well.
Yeah.
And then Mrs. Hall actually reveals that James was offered a position in Glasgow.
Right. It comes up in conversation very casually, but Helen has no idea because he has not talked to Helen yet about it.
Exactly. And he could have literally 2 minutes prior, but he didn't.
Mrs. Hall,
2 minutes in the
odd.
Show. Yeah.
Very just kind of glazes it over and she handles it pretty well, but you can tell that Helen's thrown by this.
Yeah, exactly. We cut back to the cow. The newborn calf.
Yeah.
Tristan didn't mess anything up. But he does reveal to James that he was making it all up.
Yep. He was putting on a show.
Yep. He was just putting on a show. And he's hoping for a rave review from Siegfried. And maybe that he'll finally think I'm not a hopeless cause. And James argues that Siegfried is proud of Tristan, right?
But there's no evidence of this because Siegfried never praises Tristan. He always just criticizes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that dynamic. Oh.
Yeah, it's a pretty painful dynamic. And Siegfried's trying to be the father figure, but really he's a brother. And it's just, it's not a comfortable situation.
Exactly. Not at all. All right. On that note, let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll talk about Tristan's dinner party for his birthday.
All right. Sounds great.
Support for all creatures, great and small, on Masterpiece is made possible locally by WITF members and by Pleasant View Communities, UPMC, Murray, and Argiers Murati Neurosurgical Associates of Lancaster.
Welcome back, and we are going to start talking about Tristan's dinner party.
Yes, I'm so excited. Are you ready to hear about it?
Party time. Let's do it.
All right. So James and Tristan arrive at the Skeldale house. They see that Helen is helping Mrs. Hall. Siegfried is on the phone with Mr. Dobson.
Yes.
And Tristan quickly approaches him to see if he gets anything, and he gets nothing.
Not a single word of praise. Absolutely nothing.
Nothing. Like, come on, Siegfried. You could be nicer to Tristan.
He even put on a show there.
Exactly.
Well, it's very hot or cold because he's nice to Tristan and then he doesn't praise Tristan. So it's like, this is...
Yeah.
It's too much.
He really, like, Siegfried needs some social cues.
It's whiplash. It's emotional whiplash.
It's emotional whiplash. Whiplash. Poor Tristan.
Yeah.
So the guests continue to arrive. Mrs. Brompton shows up, who's Diana, for Siegfried.
Right. And I did a closer look at Blue Ruin because I've never heard of Blue Ruin before, but she arrives with Blue Ruin for the girls.
Yeah.
And Blue Ruin is a gin, a robust, assertive juniper-forward blend that appeals to traditionally minded gin drinkers. This is from Gin Brew. It refers to a less than flattering term used by anti-spirits prohibitionists, like people who didn't want people to drink, during the gin craze that followed England's Glorious Revolution. So, closer look inside a closer look.
Oh, yes, I love it.
The gin craze happened in the first half of the 18th century. By 1727, England consumed 5 million gallons of gin per year.
What?
And I didn't write it down. I wish I would have. I think the population was 6 million. So that is a lot of gin. And the Glorious Revolution referred to the Bloodless Revolution of 1688 that resulted in the deposition of James II and the ascension of his daughter Mary II and her husband William III to the throne. So, yeah. So Blue Ruin.
Are we going back to the other closer look now?
Yeah, yes. Now we're going back to Blue Ruin. It was the evergreen notes, which would be the juniper, were rounded out with herbal notes of rosemary and thyme.
Ooh.
So it sounds really delightful. I love
does.
gin.
Yeah, so we need a bottle of this.
I would really like to drink some Blue Ruin.
I don't think I've ever drank gin before.
Oh, it tastes like pine tree.
Does it?
Yeah, it tastes very piney.
Have you eaten pine trees before?
It tastes like
why
it.
do you know what pine tastes like?
It tastes like pine tree smell, I guess. Okay. But apparently I have imbibed juniper-infused spirits, so I kind of do know what a pine tree tastes like.
There you go.
Because it tastes like gin.
There you go. We will have to get that and try it. We should have had it today. Sorry, guys.
That would have been so good.
Yes, it would have been. And then after Diana shows up, Margot shows up, and Mrs. Hall's like, "Who are you?" And then, but she comes in.
She like introduces herself with her full name.
Yes, Margot Seabright Saunders. Is Seabright her middle name?
I don't know. See, there is a tradition, at least in America, where maiden names get pushed to middle names when a mother gave birth to a child. So
yes, my maiden name is my middle name.
So I don't know if it's that same thing. Like maybe her mother's maiden name was Seabright.
Huh?
Because it doesn't sound like a middle name, really. Like a maiden name.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. Bright C Bright. Either way. So I'm not sure. But she gives Mrs. Hall the flowers and a drink. But then she goes to take it away because Mrs. Hall is not Mrs. Farnan.
Right.
And like, how rude.
Right. And Mrs. Hall's like, no, I'll put these in water.
Yeah. She's like, I'll take them. Mrs. Hall's like, what?
These are my flowers. This is correct. I worked very hard.
Yep. I made the dinner for tonight and I put this all together for Tristan. So yes, I will take this.
Super rude.
Exactly. I thought it was
for
rude.
Margot too.
Yes, very much. And then you see Margot and Helen catching up about Hugh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Margot.
Margot was clearly Hugh's friend first.
Yes, you could definitely tell. And like, she's just like, I'm so upset about how you guys broke off the wedding.
He's
and all
so
stuff.
embarrassed. He can't show his face.
I know. And it's just like, what? Like, she is throwing so much shade at Helen. Poor Helen.
I don't understand
nice.
it. I mean, I know that that's very embarrassing being left at the altar, but like it happens, and like eventually you just have to get over it, and like you're gonna meet someone new. So it's gonna be Hugh. You're gonna meet someone new.
Oh yeah, definitely. Hugh, you'll meet someone new. Yeah. But like, come on, Margot, you don't have to be rude to Helen. You haven't seen her in forever, and the first thing you're gonna say is bring that up.
Right.
It could just be, how are you doing? Not, I feel awful. It's not about you.
Right. And Diana speaks up on Helen's behalf.
Yes.
She kind of sticks up for her, says it wasn't an easy thing for you to do, and it's best that you like pulled the Band-Aid off, like basically backing up Helen, what she said about it would have just gotten worse.
Yeah. And I think that's when Margot's like, okay.
I've learned something today.
Exactly. But then James finds out, like, Margot knows Hugh beforehand. And then in that same conversation with Tristan complains that Siegfried said next to nothing about, like, his assignments that he had for the day.
Right. He was expecting something. Literally anything.
Exactly. So everybody's at the dinner table. Siegfried at the head of the table, as always.
Of course.
And Diana offers that Tristan should sit at the head of the table instead. It's his birthday after all. But it's like... So
all three of the guys stand up.
All three of them stand up.
Why all three of them?
How do we do this? You just switch seats.
Like
that's yeah. Mrs. Hall is so nice and calm about things. I'd be like, what's wrong with you?
Why don't you two switch?
My sarcasm would very much explode in that moment. But like, I was also wondering why like Siegfried is being nicer. And like, is that because of Diana? Is Diana making him nicer?
Oh, that's a possibility. I thought it was guilt.
Oh.
I feel like the guilt is eating away at him, and he feels like he has to put up or shut up. And it's like tearing him apart because now he has to pretend like Tristan passed, but he knows he didn't pass.
Yeah.
It's too much for him to handle.
Yeah, he definitely has something going on. So that's a good one, though. Is it the guilt that's influencing him to be nicer to Tristan? Yeah, or is it Diana influencing him to be nicer?
It's interesting that you got a different take on that. I did. Yours was the love romance, and mine's like, now he's just feeling guilty.
So then everybody's sitting quietly at the table. James attempts to like break the tension with a comment about the soup. And then after the dinner, we find Siegfried brings a bottle of wine for Tristan. Right?
Being nice.
Exactly. And he makes this gorgeous, beautiful speech.
Wonderful speech, yeah.
It was amazing. It was like the nicest thing I've ever heard
And that's
Siegfried
where it should have
say.
just stopped. He should have stopped right there.
Yep. It should have just been done, And he was finally so kind. Diana mentions he seems like he's like a proud dad.
Yeah. It was a touching moment.
Yeah. And then the dog starts to whine, and Tristan decides that I'm going to show off.
Right.
That's what I'm going to do.
I got these credentials. Exactly. And Margot's here.
So he starts showing off, and he's cocky. He is like, he's laying extra.
It on real thick.
Yeah. Oh, I was extra when doing the calving. It was all a show. And I did this. And then Siegfried is like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Like, did you embarrass us? That's so irresponsible. And then Tristan calls Siegfried out for putting on a show, right? With the turpentine, the purple powder.
Yes, because this is the
purple smoke.
That he's a hypocrite.
Exactly.
Because he does the exact same thing. We've seen Siegfried do the exact same thing.
Yes. So
he calls him out. That's all I'll say on
it. Yeah. But Siegfried claims he gets away with it because he knows what he's doing. And then Tristan goes and brings out, well, I have the qualifications and certifications. Right. And Siegfried says...
Or so you think.
Or so you think. I know. No. Tristan's smug smile, because he was very smug in that moment, it like immediately disappears.
I feel so bad for him.
Your heart sinks. I mean, Margot was right at the table. He's clearly trying to impress her. But like, he's really getting under Siegfried's skin.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. He's poking.
It's terrible.
I know. Cat's out of the bag. Mrs. Hall sends everybody through.
Yep. And I do have, because this is when they all kind of make their exit.
Yeah.
Helen mentions a doggy bag. And I was like, when did doggy bags ever become like what we call leftovers? And so I did a very quick closer look on that. Doggy bags actually, they weren't called doggy bags then, but they originated with the ancient Romans. So they would wrap leftover food in napkins because they had these big feasts and they couldn't eat it all. So they took it home with them. But the modern doggy bags came about in the 1940s, actually. So I feel like they might have jumped the gun a little bit here. Mm-hmm. They came about as a result of World War II food shortages. And originally, pet owners were encouraged to feed their pets table scraps. So they started making doggy bags.
Instead of like dog food.
Right. Instead of dog food, because food could be used to feed the people, it was the table scraps you were supposed to feed your pets. So
that's
when
interesting.
when people started doing it for themselves, etiquette experts were appalled. But now they're doggy bags, and Helen says her dad loves a doggy bag.
Oh.
And so that's what caught my attention. I'm like, why are they called doggy bags? Anyways, so continue.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That's really good. Thank you for that.
So they make their exit.
Siegfried and Tristan are both still in the dining room. So Siegfried explains, Tristan failed one portion of the exam. It was so small, the white lie, could have been fined, but Tristan is devastated.
Right.
He's devastated. He's talking about how he is the whole laughingstock of the whole town now. And this happened in front of everyone. He's been going around for months thinking he's certified.
And telling everybody he's certified. Today he spent all day bragging about being certified.
Exactly. And then Siegfried just didn't want to put Tristan through that feeling again. But then he says, I've been proven right because you had the false hope of knowing that you had certifications and you can do it.
Right.
So I'm right. It's come on, Siegfried.
His heart was in the right place, but it doesn't matter because that's a really big lie. That's a really big lie.
Listen, this man needs to own up.
He really does.
He needs to own up and take responsibility.
Even me.
I like to think that they're both a little at fault. Tristan was poking and being too cocky about it.
Yeah.
And then that bursted Siegfried's bubble a little bit. And then
it all came out.
Yeah. Right? But Tristan just wants this Siegfried's approval.
He wants Siegfried to be proud of him, and he thought it finally happened. And he was being himself. He was being he was bragging and being overconfident, but it was uncomfortable. It was actually really uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
They did a great job acting this.
They did. They did a wonderful job acting. But if Siegfried just gave Tristan some type of praise.
Yeah, along the
way. I think it would have been so much better.
Right, it wouldn't have come to a head at dinner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I have a story where I know where I had a previous supervisor of mine who even said this to me in a thing. I always praised you and gave you acknowledgement for the things that you have done that were great in public.
Right.
And it's great, but never in a one-on-one conversation. Never got any praise.
Okay.
So I feel Tristan here. I would and I feel Tristan on this with.
So it was
if
this
you just
performance.
give some praise. Yeah. If you just give some praise, great job, pat on the back, throughout the whole process,
Little
then
nods.
in the end, it might not bubble up to be this huge feeling.
I gotta make
and,
big deal of it.
Exactly, at the end. So if Siegfried just was giving Tristan praise throughout the whole thing, he might have been not trying to be overconfident or something like that.
Right. Oh, yeah, true.
But
that is true.
But then Siegfried goes and says at the dinner table this huge speech
Right, he
about
blows
how
his head
awesome
real
Tristan
big.
is. Yep, in front of everyone in public. So I was like, oh, I feel this. I feel you, Tristan. I'm with you. I understand. So then we cut to Tristan at the kitchen table, and he's drinking. He's taking his food in liquid form tonight.
Poor Tristan.
Yeah, I know. Poor Tristan. But then Mrs. Hall reassures him that Siegfried's intentions, they weren't bad. He cares so much about Tristan. She's really trying to stick up for Siegfried, and Tristan's he's not having it.
Right.
He's you can't stick up for this man. He did something really, really wrong.
Bad. And it was really bad. And Mrs. Hall, I think, really knows that too, because at the end she was just I'm truly sorry. And that was it.
Yep. And she was. So we cut to James and Helen, and finally.
It's finally out.
Finally, he tells her about the job. She's like, I already knew. But and I just think she's so graceful. She's level-headed. She's so angry with him for not telling her. But she holds it together. She is very level-headed.
She gives him a chance to actually tell her himself.
Exactly.
Which
and
is good.
And she listens to him about how he explains, how it happened. His mom accepted the job.
Right.
So, and then he talks about how he's letting either side down. Helen, it's a choice. Helen and Darrowby or his parents in Glasgow.
Right.
That's a huge decision to make. And Helen just goes and says, we'll just have to work something out then, won't we?
Yeah, I thought it was really cute, too, that he didn't want to put pressure on Helen. And I think Helen appreciated the fact that he thought of her in that way. Like, he didn't want to put pressure on the relationship because it's so new. Mm-hmm. That's why he took so long to tell her.
Yeah. He's such a sweetie pie.
Anyways, it was a really touching moment.
It really was.
Helen's so cool.
She is. She's a smashing lass.
She is a smashing lass. I love that. Mrs. Hall has the best.
Exactly. So then we got to Tristan again drinking in the living room, but he's drinking from Siegfried's special bottle.
his good stuff. His good malt.
He's showing Siegfried giving him a taste of his own medicine.
Right. And what is Siegfried gonna do?
Exactly. He can't yell at him.
At this point.
Yep. And then he just contemplates if ignorance was bliss.
Yeah, maybe not knowing what's the best thing for him.
Yeah. So then James is really nice. He goes, vets don't all have certifications and qualifications, and they still do a great job. And you did a great job not having qualification or the
you can do the job. You know you can do this.
You know you have the skills for it. So we should just do it, and you should be fine. And Tristan goes, okay. Well, let's go to Drover's to get blasted. And then he's like, we should have just went there in the first place. And Tristan tells him to bring the whiskey to the pub. I'm like,
it's the good stuff. They probably don't have the good stuff at Drover's. It might be that they don't have the super
But they're going to the pub. That's not okay now.
Maybe he's going to share with the other patrons.
Maybe. Maybe. I mean, I've definitely brought a little shot glass with me sometimes.
Right. Okay.
Just slip it in some orange juice or soda I get. But that's only when it's going to charge me $15 just for a shot that cost me $3 at the store.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my goodness.
So he bounces back.
He'll bounce back, and he will, and it'll all get better, and because that's what this show is all about, family and being there for each other.
Yeah, even though this was a tough episode, and we actually saw Tristan cry.
Yeah.
It ends on kind of an up note.
Yes.
They go off to the pub, and they're going to have some fun together.
Yep, brotherly love. So is there anything you're looking forward to in the next episode?
I'm interested. I mean, really just seeing where the romance grows. Siegfried kind of makes a nod to Mr. Hammond in this episode, suggesting that maybe Mrs. Hall wants to invite someone. So I'm hoping that's a clue that maybe Mr. Hammond will be back. So we'll see. We'll see.
I'm interested in all of that, and to see how Tristan and Siegfried make up. And
how they actually move past this. I think it's going to be to not talk about it and pretend it never happened, because that seems to be their mode.
That's a good outlook. You're probably right. All right, everyone. Thanks again for listening to Postscript from WITF. We love watching along with you.
That's right. And if there are moments you love or wonder about as you watch, share your thoughts with us at postscript@witf.org or ps@witf.org.
This podcast was produced by Amorós for WITF in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I'm Beth Cappello.
And I'm Christina Zeiders. We'll catch you next time.
We'd like to thank Pleasant View Communities, UPMC, Murray, Argiers Maradi Neurosurgical Associates of Lancaster, and WITF members for supporting all creatures great and small on WITF. Thank you.